Tables turn at McDonald's drive-thru when a cashier comes to the rescue for a police officer in trouble. But before we start, please make sure to subscribe to m&rtv and hit the bell so you never miss any upload from us. Also, leave a like right now. They say that life is not certain, that no one knows when our time will come. Death does not differentiate between the rich and the poor, the good or the bad. There is danger lurking around the corner that comes unexpectedly at us. We can never say that we are safe all the time. Even at a place like McDonald's, something happened that could have easily taken a person's life, had it not been for this cashier. It threatened the life of someone who is not an ordinary person, but actually a police officer. It was like any other day working at McDonald's for this cashier. Nothing was different. In fact, it was quite uneventful that day at work. "That's $15.35 in total, please," Pedro Valoria announced from his mic. Then the sound of the cars honking would continue. People who came to order were usually very impatient, but he was not offended or annoyed because this is normally how hungry people behave. Pedro was not one to complain, and so he did his best to serve the people who had shown up at the drive-thru that day. At his workplace, he made sure the cups were properly filled, that the bags had been stuffed with food. Everyone knows how vile, soggy fries are, so Pedro would make sure to put the boxes at the bottom and the fries on top. He opened his window to be welcomed by screaming kids. Since Valoria was still young, he was not sure which career path to take. At that point, he was still trying to decide what he wanted for his future. His mom had taken care of him and his 4 siblings. She was working 60 hours a week, handling 2 jobs, just to make sure her kids had food to eat. She was also keeping aside some money for their college tuition, which made Pedro feel a little guilty. Pedro was not a slacker. He was actually scoring good grades in school, but he was still not qualified to receive a full scholarship for a good college. He knew that if he had the tuition money, he would have no problem to get enrolled in a proper college. He knew he could do this if it weren't for their problem with money. So when he graduated, he had surprising news for his mom. Since they were not well-to-do, Valoria's mother had to make a lot of sacrifices. She was on the verge of being overworked as she barely took 4 hours of sleep. However, she still kept her job, which was a 10-hour shift, 6 days a week. She was indeed an impressive mother because she could still manage to keep a proper breakfast and dinner each day for her kids. Since she wanted nothing but the best for her kids, Valoria's mother did not stop and continued to work and sweat for the sake of her family. She was definitely one that deserved a break from all the stress and work. He then made an announcement while having their meal. "I'm getting a job." She then had a conversation with Valoria before she left for work. Then the hard part comes. Since Valoria was fresh out of school, he did not have any work experience. He had never held a job before, although this was not actually his choice. His mother did not want him to have a job. So far, he was only allowed to work for the neighbors, mow their lawn or paint their fences. Her only expectation was for him to finish school so that he could build a decent life for himself. His mother loved them so much and only wished for her kids to receive a proper education. She was working hard and barely had time for herself. Pedro could not shake the feeling of guilt since his mother was doing all she could just for his well-being. He could not let her provide for the family and also pay for all of his tuition. But getting a decent job was not an easy task. Since his mother did not allow Valoria to work, he had no experience worth counting when it came down to jobs. He did not have an impressive resume. Since he was only allowed to do chores for his neighbors, the only jobs he could list were babysitting, painting, and gardening. He did not have qualifications, and his hobbies were reading and watching TV. However, he kept a positive spirit. He did not want to focus on the negative points, but was rather optimistic about his job hunting. He wore his ironed white shirt and began to look for jobs around Doral, Florida. The only thing that he was accompanied with was his briefcase that he had borrowed from one of their neighbors. The only response he ever received was, "We'll be in touch." It was not happening for him just yet. The other families that were also living in his neighborhood hired Valoria to work odd jobs. These included cleaning carpets, doing the dishes, and taking their dogs for walks. These jobs were certainly not helping him much, as they only got him a couple of bucks. Soon he decided to give his siblings a treat. His mom was not about to have this and simply told him, "Don't waste your money." Since he was not one to back down on his ideas, Valoria did not want to save his money all to himself. He was adamant on giving his siblings a treat after he saved up a sum of money. He became quite hard-headed on this topic. He also invited his mom to join them on her day off. None of them had a clue that this day would bring forth something that would be extremely difficult to forget. So since he insisted, Valoria finally took his siblings out to unwind and have some fun. They went to play some gutter ball and enjoyed 2 rounds of bowling. This was not over. Valoria then brought his family to McDonald's to have some Happy Meals and ice cream. There, something took his attention. As they were eating at McDonald's, he saw a Help Wanted sign. He knew this was a good opportunity to get a job. He did not spare any time and got to inquire about it the next day itself. He went and gave them all of his information. They were glad to give him a chance, that his shift would be a couple of hours, that he would be paid higher than minimum wage. All he had to do was to get their call. He certainly did not expect to become one of their best employees. When he finally went to this job interview at McDonald's, Valoria gave nothing but the best of his capabilities. His positive mindset and behavior managed to impress the management team, so he got an offering for the job straight away. He went to receive his training the following day. He was having difficulty in balancing the flow between the cash register, milkshake machines, taking orders, and packing. So Valoria was not exactly quick to grasp what the job would require him to do. This was not an issue because he still showed he was eager and open to learning. The team he was placed in was also very patient with him. On top of all this, since he showed that he was hardworking and put effort, his teammates were open to help with anything possible. But nobody had expected him to handle customers the way he did this very day. Soon Valoria got his own timing that he needed to work in. They assigned him the early 5 a.m. shift that would require him to wake up in the wee hours of the day. This would mean that Pedro had to put his siblings to bed because his mother would already be at work. Then he had to go straight to sleep. Since he did not have to see his family sacrifice anything for him to join college, made Valerio really happy. Pedro was glad that he had work to do and money to save. He had set his goals and was willing to do an excellent job no matter what the task was at his new job. Every person that he served there and the floors that were mopped were all stepping stones towards achieving his ultimate goal. During morning time in the rush hour, a family pulled up to his window. The driver of this car was, in fact, a woman. As the day was like any other, Pedro did not expect to see or experience anything unusual that morning. But when this family rolled up in the McDonald's window that day, something strange happened. The 2 children were shouting from their seats, "Mother, mother, stop it! Mother, what are you doing?" Valorio thought this car would stop next to his window. It did not. Pedro was just handling orders and going on with his job just like any other day, but the car he thought would stop in front of his window kept on moving forward. He was so shocked to see that the woman driver had her eyes closed and was not awake. Her kids could not do anything to wake her up. Valoria kept their orders on the counter to jump out and try to help. This was such an unexpected encounter. To see a woman unconscious in the driver's seat would give anyone a huge shock. But upon seeing this potential danger, Valoria zoomed out of the counter and got to the car. He then opened the passenger door and put the vehicle to a halt before it could collide or crash into something. It was later revealed that this lady had passed out right after she ordered breakfast. Imagine the kind of shock the kids must have felt when they saw that their mother had passed out right in front of them while driving. So the kids panicked and started to scream. Their mother would not wake up despite the constant loud screams of their children. "Hello?" Valoria kept asking. He saw that the people having their breakfast were special people. Since Pedro was not someone who was capable of handling such a complicated situation as this, he would need some help soon. He scanned the area and then spotted some folks nearby. He could tell that some of them were regular customers that were recognizable. He also saw 2 firefighters and a paramedic who had entered after their shift. They were quick to assist him as he asked for help. And then, after combining their efforts, they all worked towards helping the woman and the kids. Since she was still unconscious, they would have to get her out of the car before an accident takes place. They joined forces to take her out of the car and then stabilized her condition. They immediately took her to the hospital. "In that moment, I thought I'd rather save that woman's life," Pedro revealed. When they finally took the passed-out woman to the hospital, her identity was finally revealed. She was actually an off-duty police. She could be taken to the hospital in time. Her condition was critical, but she was now stable. And now she was a little better because of Valoria. Basically, I thought something was going wrong, he claimed, after spotting her trying to breathe. He had just shown up at work that day ready to take orders and go about his usual routine. But his day was definitely not an ordinary one. He had absolutely no clue that his Tuesday morning was going to start off this way. To begin the day this way definitely made him shocked. McDonald's spokespeople were also chiming in on the incident that took place at the drive-thru this day. Since Pedro was quick to jump into action and take matters into his own hands, he did quite the impressive task. The people who were working with him also had high praises for the new employee. He is an excellent employee, so it didn't surprise me that he took immediate action to jump through the window to save this woman, a McDonald's spokesperson expressed. Not only were his employers impressed, but also the people who were nearby and saw how they took care of the incident. Their quick thinking and action were everything in that moment, some customers said as he spoke about Pedro. His fellow employees shared the same. There was nothing in his job description that required him to be a superhero. However, Pedro was willing to act like one. I think I speak for our McDonald's family when I say how proud we are of Pedro, added the spokesperson, willing to speak about their employee. There were some other people who were most grateful towards the McDonald's cashier. So who are his biggest fans? Obviously his mom and siblings. Well, it was later revealed that Valoria started quickly looking towards becoming a paramedic. The employee who was just doing his job at McDonald's ended up becoming more than just another employee there. He would now be remembered for the amazing thing he had done. He was able to bring a mother and her kids out of potential danger that could have been life-threatening. He himself was surprised by his own actions. "I saved an officer's life? I can't believe this," he exclaimed in disbelief. Not all heroes wear capes, and Pedro's story definitely proves this. There was an incident that took place in McDonald's that most of us would definitely wish to encounter. There was a number of customers that made claims that a couple named Greg and Stacy Terry received a bag that had thousands and thousands of dollars in place of their orders. They immediately felt that this was a mistake and returned it, received a word of gratitude from the manager of the restaurant. This is one good reason why you should never let females go alone to McDonald's. Back in 2008, a man gave a punch to a young teenage girl because she had a better spot in the waiting line. He did this to take her place. He proceeded to run away from this particular restaurant. The police could not locate this guy even though his face was clearly seen in the surveillance tapes. Something involving a gun happened at McDonald's back in February 2014. How would you feel if you found out that someone armed had shown up in the same McDonald's restaurant as you? Well, a woman fired a shot in a Michigan McDonald's. The reason was something unbelievable. It was due to the fact that the bacon cheeseburger she ordered with a pal had no bacon. That made her angry. Who would have ever thought that their long-lost possession would ever turn up at a McDonald's restaurant of all places? A woman named Virginia Maiden, who resides in Washington, discovered her stolen vehicle once again after it was lost. She saw it in the drive-thru line at a McDonald's restaurant while she was waiting to give her order as well. This one is an unfortunate incident that happened at a McDonald's restaurant. This happened to a homeless Florida man who went inside a McDonald's restaurant and requested to have a cup of water. But he decided to fill the cup with soda instead. He was later convicted as a felon only because of the fact that he could not pay $1.